Hi, Muhammad.
Hello, Ibrahim.
How are you?
Very good.
Good. Welcome to Below the Fold. Very excited to have you here. Give us an introduction.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you, Ibrahim. It's great effort so far. I've listened to 9 of the podcasts so far. They're really great. Mm-hmm. I think they're adding a lot of insightful information for the industry. So a bit about myself. I spent almost 10 years in advertising and marketing across multiple agencies between Publicis, WPP, and IPG MCN. Obviously, we crossed paths back in Saudi.
Yes.
And myself and you. We've worked on a lot of exciting projects.
Yeah.
And lately, in the last 5 years, I'm working at Oracle in customer experience applications. I was assigned for go-to-market for customer data platform across MENA region. And recently, I'm focusing across all customer experience applications between UAE and Saudi.
Impressive. Or mashallah, like we say in Arabic, right? Before we get into the topic of today, which is about data, which I'm pretty excited about, and I'm excited to hear your view as well, because I know that you're very passionate about this topic. I want to ask you a question that I ask most of my guests, which is, what do you think about the title of the podcast, Below the Fold?
So I actually tested multiple people to understand what is it, including marketeers.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I would say almost 30% would understand. People who had this programmatic side of things would understand it more.
Yeah.
Personally, I like it a lot because, programmatic was my passion. I was handling it back in the agency days. So yeah, it really gets people to understand what's really below the fold. And below the fold could be multiple things, right? Not just only the viewability on display ad. It could be what can below the fold of data, for example.
Of course.
What are the insights we can get out of the data? And so on and so forth. So you can build a lot of stories. And as you know, as marketeers, we're storytellers. Mm-hmm. So you can get a lot out of this. So I'm really excited. Just a small thing, disclaimer, everything I'm going to say here today is on my own views. It doesn't represent any of my employer's views related to marketing or data or technology.
Understood. Very good. And I like your analysis of the title of the podcast. There is a technical definition, which, is the placement of the banner, right? Above the fold and below the fold. But there's also a metaphor, right? Or a metaphorical definition as well, right? Uncovering what's below a certain topic, right? Or deep diving into a certain topic. Amazing. Let's dive straight into it. So before we go into discussing what is the state of data today, right? Data unification, the availability of data, the data sources, data unification, aggregation, activation, etc. The tech, all of that stuff. I know you wanted to talk about the history of data, right? Or the progression of data. I think that the use of data goes back centuries, I think, right?
Absolutely.
Do you want to?
Yeah, so this is exactly what I was just talking about. So I actually did my own graph related to this. So it's basically the y-axis and the x-axis. Yeah. And you got like the data progression and the time. Right. So organization over time, we're investing a lot in technology since the 80s. It's not something new. Right. Of course, it was mainly on-premise solutions. They were like storing the data. CRMs were there. Yeah. All the way into 2000. Yeah. 2000, we started seeing, of course, the internet emerged and customers started searching with the rise of search engines. So customers started to engage online and start checking and searching about a lot of this information about their products or services. So here, for the first time, the customers are sort of in control on what they want to see compared to just going to the shop, going to a car dealer, and so on and so forth. And then 2010, with the rise of social media, for the first time, we saw that data became sort of out of control from organizations. Why? Because customers are going on social media, are asking questions, are engaging. Yeah. Even the shift in terms of customer service, which we'll talk a bit about it later, started to have a shift from the regular CRMs that is just in the call center to social media, sort of social media centers, social media customer service centers. Yeah. So where organizations start handling it, it's much faster to handle complaints on Facebook or Twitter back then, compared to just waiting for the call center, which we used to wait.
And these platforms also developed the tools, right, for your organization to use to cater to customers, right?
Exactly.
Like Twitter had, or formerly Twitter, X today, had a...
It's still like the old names, yeah.
Yeah. Had an extensive feature for customer care.
Of course.
Right?
Because it was much faster for customers to engage, and particularly in the MENA region, because we're dealing a lot with, I would say, younger population who prefers things much faster.
Yeah.
And the adoption for these platforms were much higher compared to other countries around the world.
Yeah.
So it has created a new sets of data to handle. And okay, the question is, shall I move quickly and adopt these latest technologies? At the same time, what shall I do with the system that I have?
Yeah.
Nobody foresee that this will increase to that huge extent, and it might surpass the traditional systems. And this is what happened in 2020, that, okay, now we have a huge boom in e-commerce, multiple social media platforms, not only one, compared to what happened in 2010. At the same time, of course, handling the regular call center stuff. At the same time, even in e-commerce, you have a lot of referrals, a lot of multiple retailers who would sell multiple brands. So this is actually the first time data surpassed the data that customers are generating outside of the organization's control, surpassed on what is being controlled by the organization themselves.
Right, yeah.
So, and now we're 2024, the generative AI, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So is it being monitored?
Is it?
In terms of customer engagement. So today, if I'm asking ChatGPT, what do you recommend the best SUV for my family?
Yeah.
Okay, are the car dealers looking into this kind of data?
Right.
So this is sort of a missing element on the customer engagement that probably organizations should look at.
Yeah.
Of course, within time, always we prove that there's a way to monitor and understand customers' engagement on multiple platforms. What I'm saying is, customer engagement is increasing a lot of platforms.
Right.
And organizations are focusing on how to get all these engagements into one place, understand the customer insights.
Right. So there's a lot of engagement towards a certain product outside of the organization, outside the realm of the organization, right? On social media, on AI, on generative AI, which is not necessarily always accessible, right?
Exactly.
To these organizations.
Indeed. So then organizations with the challenge nowadays is, all right, so there's a lot of these platforms, and of course, most of them are walled gardens.
Yeah.
There's certain ways to extract the data, but then is it the same way that I wanted to see on my actual systems? So compared to, let's say, if someone goes on social media platforms or on search engine, will engage with multiple websites, or even my website, is it the same way that the customer goes to my shop? So there's two different ways of collecting data. So, and now then how I can cross-check between what is online, what is offline.
Yeah.
That's what we call identity resolution, to make sure that Ibrahim is the same person who've received the email, who engaged on the commerce platform, who went to the shop, and so on and so forth. So the accessibility of the data is one thing. To finding the right identity, of course, with all of these tighter regulations nowadays, making things much harder.
Yeah.
At the same time, having the right and the real-time element, especially with the fast-moving, I would say, type of services or products that needs sort of the immediate or the real-time element to make sure to influence the customer decision on buying a certain product or service.
Interesting. And who do you think is doing it better than others? Because I feel like from the availability of data, one, two, the very importantly is the planning cycle or the path to purchase time, right? To make a purchase. I feel like the longer the window, the longer the path to purchase, the more there's opportunity for organizations to use data, activate it, and influence the path to purchase, right? So, for example, automotive, it may take a customer, I'm just saying anything, 2 to 3 months maybe to make a purchase. So you have, as an organization, 2 to 3 months in order to get that insight and activate it and influence the decision, right? This is what you're referring to in terms of in terms of the product and the life cycle of the product, right? And how that affects, how important the real-time insight is. As opposed to, for example, another product which you need every day maybe is food. For example, a QSR brand or, a meal. You would need that You need a instant data, right? Every hour you need the data to activate. Indeed. Right? So would you say that automotive brands are in a much better place, for example?
So here it depends on what we call it in multiple ways. Let's take it back to the data and then move it into the communication side of things. Is in terms of what we always advise our customers is to look into their data collection strategy.
Yeah.
All right. And especially for types of industries or services that you engage offline, and also you do the online research or online, I would say, analysis to set up an example on the automotive industry. So I would say they're blessed a bit because it is a longer sales cycle. So I would say the real-time element, not all the time, but the majority of the sales cycle is not that efficient, or that, let's say, not efficient, not that crucial compared to, let's say, more hardcore B2C, like of retail or QSR and so on.
Okay.
So on that case, what we actually take the B2B sort of analysis or B2B approach on account-based marketing and apply it on the likes of the automotive, because it is a longer sales cycle. It needs also a lot of human engagement, not also to forget that, because the salespeople still will have a lot of influence on the buying decision, on the way they present, for example, the features, how it can help. For example, if it's a family SUV, then there are multiple stakeholders who would make the decision. So the human element, how to fuse the human element within the marketing communication overall to influence the decision. And also how the marketing and the content that is being presented or showcased to the certain family or the certain person would be influenced based on what I've said, for example, in the car dealership. So all of this would make a huge difference. And then when it comes to B2C, of course, there's a lot of pressure on them in terms of how to make the data first of all unified, and second, the prediction element or the product offering or the product offering engine to be much smarter and very efficient and very straight to the point when it comes to the actual buying behavior, what's actually going to influence me to buy this certain product. So I would say on the B2C, the bar is higher. And for organizations, they need to really get things into control when it comes to in terms of data unification. And also when it comes to the actual offer generation for certain customer group levels. Whether it is customers who bought this more likely bought this, or we, based on your buying behavior, we recommend if you try this, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of insights and analysis can be grown, and of course there's always the A/B testing, right? So a lot of testing that would benefit organizations, and probably with these certain offers they can unlock certain insight that they didn't know about their customers. So this is more or less between what we call it a longer sales cycle and the shorter sales cycle, and how data would play a crucial role, or in terms of how they can connect the dots internally in order to make sure to deliver, I would say, the customer experience that is personalized to influence the buying decision.
Right. And what would you say are some of the prevalent metrics today that are utilized when marketeers leverage data and speak this language and implement the MarTech technology and identify opportunities, moments, or I guess high value segments? Are we still talking about lifetime value? Are we talking about a life cycle? Are these still valid today?
They are still valid, of course, because to certain organizations, so it's very important to understand how the organization or the customer the client that we're dealing with, how they're structured internally, on what each department has its own KPIs. Of course, to the CMO and to the CCO, of course, sales and targets are extremely important, and that's of course the number one objective.
Metrics and objective,
of course, And then we look into, for example, customer value management teams, just their main KPI. It's not customer acquisition, it's not how to grow the value of the customer. So customer lifetime value, customer value management is very important for them. And then, of course, for the acquisition departments, it's, of course, how many new customers I can get. So, of course, the tactic and the conversation and the metrics are very important. So, for example, the other side, you will say ROI, of course, is very important. How much I'm spending compared to how much I'm getting. So this is the second element. And of course, the nature of the industry. Right? So if it is a service industry or it is completely a product-driven industry, it makes a difference. So, and speaking about marketing technology, and how things can be connected to these organizations. The challenge nowadays is how to make sure to break the silos between these departments internally, because traditionally each department is using its own set of technology.
Yeah.
And nowadays there's a very blurred line between all of these, I would say, departments. Departments are our own organization, but for the customer, it's not the case.
Yeah.
And I would say one of the missing elements is always what marketeers are missing a lot is the service element.
Yeah.
Okay. If the customer is calling and he's pissed off, and which happens to all of us.
Yeah.
And okay, if the customer service agent would solve the problem, why not this customer service agent can upsell or a new product or new service?
Right. And the customer service agent doesn't always know that the customer could be perhaps a high value customer as well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So smarter organizations, and some of them actually started doing that, is on the strategic element is how to make sure that the customer service department is not just a cost center. How we can move it to a revenue center. Moving it to the revenue center will take multiple steps. Step number one is equip them with the right data to understand if, yes, this person is high value customer. If he's a golden customer, let's say in banking or in airlines or so on and so forth. So yes, on this case, then after solving the problem, offering him, for example, to upgrade to business class with half the price, okay? Because you've seen traditionally upgrading, for example, twice a year or compared to person always.
Are you referring to an airline?
Not in a particular airline, just as an example.
Yeah.
But in this case, if the customer service agent can do that and he would understand sort of the capacity of this particular flight, so he or she can generate an actual additional revenue.
Yeah.
So the cost center will move completely to generating more revenue for the organization because he solved the problem and the customer is happy. So let's move this customer to add more revenue to the company. So this is one of course, the conversations that is having across multiple organizations, and they start adopting that because it's going to increase the revenue for the organization, which is definitely a target for the C-level.
The customer service agent has become today a salesperson, able to upsell, cross-sell.
Not per se a salesperson. If he's solving my problem as a customer, I'm solving my problem, and he's offering me something exciting.
Right.
So why not? Right?
Yeah.
Because it's also linked to the capacity. It's linked to a certain offer that he has.
Right.
And which is also so. Let's probably put it into a picture. So there is definitely first the data element.
Yeah.
There's definitely the offer element.
Yeah.
And which is linked also to the capacity.
Yeah.
Right. So these three main elements, the customer service agent should be equipped with them in order to make the decision, because the offers would be preset for him or her to decide from. Okay. And accordingly, after the customer is happy, then okay, I solved his major problem. Then let's move him into a certain service, which is going to look like more that as a complement, and at the same time, he is generating revenue, and it's linked to the capacity management, or call it the revenue management.
But the data is very important in order to make the offer relevant,
of
right?
Course.
Or irrelevant.
That's why it's linked together, because offers will not be smart unless it's reading from the historical data, and it doesn't know who, for example, Ibrahim is, and he made multiple decisions before, and then I will offer him this particular offer.
So data today is changing the role of customer service agents. Right.
Indeed.
And which is brilliant, I find. Are there any particular industries, sectors that are doing this more efficiently? Would you say, you mentioned upgrade to business class, so I feel like you're referring to the airline category.
Because it's closer to our heart,
Would you say the airline category is an industry that is doing this a bit better than others? Maybe automotive as well?
I would say, probably you'll be surprised, I would say in terms of customer service, it's my own opinion, and particularly in the MENA region, I would say governments are setting the bar really high. Because if you look around the world, and especially for people who come new to Dubai, they would say, okay, we're really shocked in terms of the governmental services. So absolutely. I would say governments, especially when you have a leader with a vision, set the bar really high for the government to have an excellent customer service. And then for the other industry, for the regular commercial industry, they need to follow. So this is unique, for example, to Dubai and to the region, that governments are setting the bar really high on customer service. And if you really look deep, it's all linked to the data is being unified and cleansed and available to be used. So then, of course, other industries I'll follow. I would say this particularly unique to Dubai and to this region.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when it comes to for industry that is very customer service intensive, right? So this would vary a lot, of course, between them.
Yeah.
And depending on the ecosystem internally and how they can help their customers to be satisfied and to have a great customer service.
Right. And so knowing, or from your perspective, being on the forefront of who is adopting these technologies, right? Who's making progress, who has massive headroom but needs a little push. Which industry would you say today sits or has access to a substantial amount of data and is able to, I guess, make a strong leap forward, right? That is not doing it today.
Yeah, I would say I would just take from David Rogers in his book Digital Transformation.
Yeah,
he spoke. It's more about the strategy more than technology adoption, and that's in general across the technological landscape. What we see mainly is that organization it's not mainly a challenge of adopting technology rather than knowing how to use it and for particular use cases or for the full view. Of course, and I'll speak a bit in details about the technological availability and especially in marketing technology. That of course in the last 10 years we've seen a huge leap in terms of the number of available applications or systems. So we all know the Lumascape of martech.org. We started with 300 applications 10 years back. Today I think we're more than 10,000 applications. So which means as organization you have a lot of applications to select from. So how to know which one is the right one for you? And of course we got during COVID organizations made a lot of decisions and bought a lot of these systems and softwares. And then whether it is a quick decision to buy or probably to build as well. So then today they said, according to Gartner, that investment dropped a bit on marketing technology from marketing standpoint. And also in terms of usage, this also dropped because there are a lot of systems that cost organizations don't know what to do with. Because it's very important to understand that in any technology, always do what we say, that 5 out of 7 habits begin with the end in mind, right? Because these SaaS solutions would increase and would be developed and would be adding a lot of features. So some of these solutions have more capabilities. So other solutions will not be used later on. There's a lot of examples about this. So how to make sure that what I have as a marketing technology architecture that really fulfill what I'm looking for. And of course, there will be a lot of development. Of course, new stuff will come in and new technologies will emerge. So how to make sure that I'm aligning my sort of digital architecture with what I'm willing to achieve.
Right.
Okay. So it's very important for organizations to understand that, to act based on this particular angle.
What would you say are the barriers today for an organization to invest in MarTech? Is cost one of them, perhaps? Today, I can understand that some of the costs of acquiring the smart tech is pretty high for some organizations. Perhaps another one could be the qualifications of the staff, right, operating this tech. What do you see today from your end?
I would say understanding the value of what this marketing technology will bring on the short run and also on the long run.
Right.
So if we're looking into data intensive, I would say marketing solutions, if I would really understand what sorts of data do I have as an organization and how I can use it moving forward, then the investment is just a number, because the value or the ROI that I will get out of this is really, really high.
Yeah.
So especially if I'm looking into multiple elements compared into just the regular, I would say, for example, advertising use cases. If I start looking into things like identity resolution, matching online to offline. How I can, for example, one of the main challenges, I bought something, but I still see the ads for it. if I can stop that, in this case, I'm bringing some media efficiency to my budgets. If I link service to marketing as well, then we can achieve what we just spoke about in terms of customer service, excellency and cross-selling. And also when it comes to unifying the data as well, if the offer engine will get smarter, which means I can get more and more offers.
Right.
So in this case, we can understand and we can get the value out of whatever investment I'm doing. And also it always depends what already I have in hand and the nature of the industry. Because what probably works for customer X doesn't work for customer Y.
Yeah.
At the same time, one of the important elements probably in the marketing, it's not being talked about a lot, probably as a technology person I'm saying, is the integration between these systems, right? So you'll be surprised for just customer service, there are 2 or 3 systems being used.
Yeah.
So how to make sure and each system is doing one particular thing.
Right. Wouldn't you say that it's a question of maturity as well? So organizations need to have reached a certain level of maturity before bringing in the stack.
Of course.
So you have a lot of organizations that have not plateaued or are far from plateauing on digital marketing, as a broad space whereby they could still create an uplift from investing more in digital marketing before bringing in MarTech, right, as a priority. What do you have to tell to these people?
Indeed. So it's actually an interesting point because what we're seeing is, and this is a personal view, of course, that in terms of investment on advertising, this is investment in terms of time and money compared to what you invest on marketing technology is pretty low.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm seeing this a lot with a lot of organizations.
Yeah.
And sort of the call out for marketeers is, okay, and actually I will quote, me and you, we've made this mistake before.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you remember when.
No, please enlighten me. Enlighten me.
So as marketeers, both of us,
I learned.
Yeah. So both of us, if you recall, when we used to launch campaigns for our customers, that looking for their own customers, we actually spent a lot of time trying to build all of these segments across multiple platforms. Okay, I found the right place, the right recipe, I would say.
Yeah.
But in reality, the answer was exactly just next to us. It was just, Mr. Customer, if you can just connect whatever you have from customer data connected to the online platforms.
Right.
And let's target these customers over there. And of course, if you can build these particular segments or make it much smarter through whatever technology that you're using.
Yeah.
So, and this still, and to a certain extent, still being applied today and here the agencies are doing a lot of great work when it comes to trying to find the right segment, while how we can connect whatever the agency effort is doing to whatever the customer internally has a lot of data.
Yeah. But before we get to agency, about this mistake and the solution being right there in front of us, is it that straightforward? Like, yes, we could have used the client's data, but they also need to have collected this data, right, and stored it properly, like in a consistent way. And activating this data on these platforms also has its nuances, right? These platforms request the data in a certain way, in a certain format, right? Emails, numbers. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit more? Like, what's the complexity or simplicity?
It's a fair point. Yeah, fair point. Exactly. I'm just making it as an example.
Yeah, it's okay. But for our listeners also to learn,
exactly. So one of the main challenges, even I would say, with the very basic aspect of data, and this subject has been talked about for the last 20 years, is data cleansing.
Yeah.
So just to understand that, for example, Ibrahim nowadays is 3 or 4 Ibrahims in a lot of organizations' systems.
Yeah.
Because they themselves adopting multiple technologies across the years.
Yeah.
So you, for example, have multiple emails, multiple phone numbers, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So these projects took a lot of time for organizations to do.
Yeah.
Before the rise of the internet, before the rise of CDPs or DMPs and so on. Yeah. So this topic is still being discussed internally across the internal systems.
Yeah.
So this was one of the main barriers, I would say, for us to do our job better.
Yeah.
So this is a very important topic for both marketers and IT data team to understand. And this is a main barrier that why today we're not saying the personalization up to the level that we all aim for.
Right.
Especially with customers who have been traditionally mainly like an offline engagement compared to the online or the digital natives.
Yeah.
So this, to answer your question, this is the main barrier is the data duplication within the system. Systems internally at any organization.
Right. So even if the organization is sitting on substantial amounts of data, if the data is not organized, is not consistent, it's really hard to activate it in an efficient way. It's really hard to be effective when activating this data.
Of course.
Going back to now the agencies and the agency's role, right, and accelerating data MarTech adoption, you were going to touch on that.
Yeah. So just in a way that the great thing about the agency, and I really enjoyed the 10 years I spent over there, and taught me a lot, as the level of understanding for the customers and for the industry that we develop in the agency. And I would say it's very unique to the way it works. And we saw a lot across our careers that people who spent some time in the agency went to the customer side and really made a lot of effort and a lot of great achievements. Because they understood the customer's business a lot, and they can really flourish over there. So
they understand how the platforms work,
of course.
Too, right?
So there was speak both worlds, right? In terms of marketing and advertising at the same time, in terms of the customer's marketing efforts. So this is a particular element. So it is what I would say, and started saying it with multiple, I would say, consultancies or agencies who are trying to approach marketing in a new way, is to understand more on the possibilities that data can get them into, right? So one of the main things we always talk about, like, is campaign planning still valid today? I mean, the traditional campaign planning, of course, still that if there's a launch of a new car, there's a launch of a new service, that of course still be valid. But if the customers are always on looking for the certain products, or always on looking for the service, or there's a need for the service, do we really need to just plan a campaign for a couple of months and that's it?
No, of course not.
So this is one of the main elements that brought sort of a disruption to the way communication is being handled. And then in order to achieve that, you would need to have the whole platform connected all together, not just the advertising platform, but also internally, in terms of the emails, the SMS, the push notification, all these simple things would still make a huge difference. And connecting it to whatever we're doing on advertising and marketing in terms of content generation as well, and on social media. And then also another piece which is still being sort of missed is what would be the sales and the service team view on what marketing is generating for them. One of, for example, of the use cases we always talk about, that if a person walks into a showroom or to a particular, let's say to a particular store, the person would understand that Ibrahim was looking to 1, 2, 3 service 2 days back.
Or if you're an automotive showroom brand, Ibrahim has viewed 20 hours of content on this particular model, and he is showing high level of intent on, or curiosity on, what is the exhaust pipe made of. And so that this is a huge opportunity for the showroom manager or the salesperson to highlight or talk about this topic, right?
Of course. It can be an icebreaker, first of all, and then the conversation can be much more insightful, much more, I would say, exciting for both the salesperson or for the customer himself. So in these sort of the connectivity between all the touch points would really deliver what we call the omni-channel approach.
Experience.
Because the omni-channel is not only what I'm targeting on social media 1, social media 2, social media 3. It's always also about what is the zero moment of truth. Is it like the salesperson? And you'll be surprised how much the sales effort still had a lot of influence in terms of the buying decision. So how to make sure that every person in the whole omni-channel ecosystem is connected with the right information, the right data, and then in order to make the right decision and deliver the right offer, so the customer can make the decision and purchase what they're looking for.
Let's switch gears a little bit, and I'd like to challenge you.
All right.
why did we start calling it CDP, not DMP? Whereas essentially it's the same thing. Is it what they say? It's a marketing fad.
So I always get this question all the time. So of course, I mean, DMP was a technology that emerged a part of cookies. So just to explain to the audience about that.
Yeah.
And of course, what happened with a lot of regulations stopped the cookies to be available across a lot of browsers. And then the shift happened from the cookie-driven, I would say, communication to more identity-driven communication. So in this case, I would know Ibrahim only if Ibrahim consented for me to actually target him or to have him in my database, whether you're an anonymous user or an actual customer. So this is the main shift that happened. Regardless of technology, technologies will always come for a certain period of time and then they would leave. That's the nature of technology, right? So, or in terms of adoption, it will increase and then it will drop a bit. So the main thing, and the call probably for marketeers nowadays, is if you've spent all of this time on these platforms to understand them, to ace the way you launch your campaigns, why not to invest the same effort on your own platform?
Yeah.
Okay. And then where CDP is give this chance to organizations for them to understand how they can build the right customer profile connected to in the internal system that they have in order to have this enterprise view of the customer data. Right. So this is the main shift that, DMP was just an advertising, I would say, tool. The shift nowadays is CDPs is more like internal and external data, let's say, unification engine, at the same time marketing engine. A lot of CDPs now, they have an offers engines embedded with them, also connected to the marketing automations and to the personalization across the app and the web.
Right.
So this is the shift in mindset. Of course, the leap was massive because just talking about pure advertising use cases, but now we're talking about more holistic and an omni-channel approach.
Yeah.
And it's not something quick. So of course, DMPs have seen a lot of people would implement it in a short period of time. But for CDPs, it is an ongoing journey. It doesn't stop because once I connect the marketing solutions, and let's say the website, the app, and the CRM, but then I have to look into other solutions. For example, the data team who've been investing in the data lakes or data warehouses. So I can connect the sets of data and start building that. Also, at the same time, the data science team building all of these models of prediction. How I can bring these models into the CDP that can help me and help my team to get better offers or send more personalized communication. Yeah. So this is the shift between the DMP and the CDP. It's a shift of mindset at the first place. And of course, the possibilities of technology that would allow me as a marketeer to have a lot of offers and a lot of engagement across an omni-channel approach.
So basically the opportunity to be always on, to be omni-channel, always on, as opposed to just advertising, always on.
Exactly.
Right? Being always able to customize the experience to the end user, even when he's in the showroom or through the notifications of the app or through emailers, but not necessarily just paid media.
Indeed.
And I'm just interested to know today who is mostly invested in this, because we both know that there aren't many advertisers or brands that have always on advertising, even though the signals are there, right? You can see the demand, the intent, the in-market segments, etc., that can justify an always on, and yet we don't see that. I'm just intrigued who has taken an always on to a 360 approach.
In terms of, so there are two folds to this question.
Yeah.
Right? So there's above the fold, the one that we see as consumers or customers.
Yeah.
And there's the below the fold,
right,
where a lot of customers, organizations are investing a lot in their data unification.
Yeah.
Okay, but probably we're not seeing it. It's not seen in terms of advertising.
Right.
Okay. And this is, I would say, the hardest point.
Yeah.
So this is probably linked to the data lake or the data efforts in terms of enterprise data approach.
Yeah.
Because customers are centralizing the data internally, and then they will take it to to the communication part. So this is sort of what's happening now in the industry, that how I can balance these two, and how I can get whatever I can get from these efforts in order to use it. So here it differs a lot between industries, of course, and where do we actually see it? Because sometimes we don't see it at all. Sometimes we just receive a phone call of an actual recommendation that actually really makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And in this case, I'll make the decision on the spot. While sometimes I get all of these emails and SMSs and notifications, and what we call it a sort of fatigue analysis of how many messages I'm seeing as a customer, and when's the right time to stop them, right? So here, I would say above the fold and below the fold, there's of effort between these two projects, and based on the industry, of course.
Okay. And question, I might catch you off guard with this one.
Okay, please.
When I see an ad on social media and based on a discussion I had with a friend, is this because the data is being managed and activated properly, or is it something else?
I would pass on this. It depends.
Okay.
It depends a lot.
Fair enough.
There's a certain element of prediction. It can be done through technology.
Right.
Others, I would say you can ask
ask the platforms. Great, wonderful. It's been great having you here. Any parting words? Maybe also give the listeners maybe some tips where what can they explore in terms of resources to expand their knowledge on data.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Pleasure is mine, Ibrahim. I really enjoyed the talk. So first thing is to make things very simple. Technology is here to help us more than it's here just to make it something that's really hard to understand. And with all technology vendors, there's a lot of, whether it's training, certificates, or also there's always a help button that can help us to reach the actual objective of whatever solution. In terms of course, there are a lot of resources to understand more and more. It depends what you're looking for, depending on your role, because marketing nowadays is very broad, and depending on the industry, how I can approach this. One of them, I would say, the nice books that I've read about Ask Your Developer by Jeff Lawson, the CEO of Twilio. He really breaks it down into how he started his journey as a developer, and how he linking it back to how he launched his company, and how he built this culture of digital ecosystem with the coding at its core, at the same time to make it very customer centric. So it's an exciting, I would say, story, and would make things much easier, because at the end of the day, the people who are writing the codes or writing and the IT team are doing a lot of efforts to help organizations and their customers. So I would really recommend that book. Another book when it comes to the data in particular to understand is by Bernard Marr, Data Strategy it's called. It really lists down the types of data, the types of technologies, the possibilities that can be achieved of using this data. And it's a great book. Definitely, I would say it's a must for today's any person in a business, not only in marketing, by the way, to understand the possibilities that data can bring to the organization.
Nice.
And always the answer is next door. Whether it is with your data team or with the IT team, that's what we always recommend, how to work more and more in harmony in order to achieve the best, I would say, customer experience for your customers.
Wonderful. Thank you, Muhammad.
Thank you, Ibrahim.
Thanks
really enjoyed
coming.
it.
Yeah.
Looking forward.
Me too. Have a great evening.
You too.